Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'll call the General Purposes Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, post carried. First item is the Indigenous Relations Strategy, the proposed guide in principles and focused areas. Gentlemen, anything to add to your report?
To the chair, nothing to add to the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. How many Indigenous people do we have that live in Richmond?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the 2021 census population was 1,540
Okay.
reported.
Yeah, and I was just curious, I mean, thank you so much for your hard work. So you were hired in January of this year, and this took till now to come forward. What was your biggest struggle to bring this forward? Were you having troubles getting meetings with the Musqueam, or what was the delay?
To the chair, Councillor Day. Opening the first line of communication and having capacity with Musqueam, with the staff, was probably the hardest part. It took a while to get through to them having, now they have 2 dedicated staff working closely with us as their relationship specialists. So they started about 2 months ago, so we had 2 meetings now with them. So we're expanding the amount of people we've had since the council to council. We had one of their council reps too as well. So we have 3 contacts that we use.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Just trying to find my notes. I'm not that organized today, but that's fine. I can remember what I want to say. I got to tell you, thank you for your work on this. I'm not, again, I wish I knew where my notes were. I'm not enamored by where we are on this. A couple of questions I have, and I found it here. A couple of questions I have with respect to this is, there's nothing here, and I know our legal parts on unceded territory, and I know what we're going through on that. There's no mention here of even recognized the traditional territories. Are you not even looking at that? All of the,
I think we need to go into closed if you want to bring that up.
but I think that's just something we need to keep in mind, is how we're going to recognize the traditional territories that the Musqueam people lived on.
In closed. Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for the report. I found it quite good and quite organized. I recognize there's a lot of work to be done still, but I did like the 4 focus areas in particular. They seem practical and realistic and things that we have to move on. Just one quick question is, on page 6, when you're talking about the objectives and we're talking about the professional development and training, I'm just curious, will that be for professional development that is optional, that people take as they go through their career, or will that also be built into more regular, annual training that all members of staff might go through from time to time?
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Hobbs. In September, we held 2 internal trainings for staff on residential school, so health and mental health in Indigenous communities and health impacts of their residential school. So we're using a lunch and learn model to do more internal training in the future.
Okay, great, thank you, and good report.
Councillor Al.
Yes, I have a few questions. Now, if my understanding is correct, this is to provide a guideline or, a direction for the city to go along with the reconciliation process. This report does not touch on how we promote reconciliation in the community. Is my understanding correct? This is more focused on us as a government.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Al. It's identified, I think it was the number, we're working with the community as well. So through commemorations, different days, we added missing and murdered women this year. We're hoping to do, we're limiting it right now, so we're going through to put more internal training at the moment. Then we'll work towards the external, but immediately we were just working internally for staff.
Right, yeah. I think, it's important for us to reflect on, how we can improve the process from government to government. But I think at the same time, I think we also try to encourage and make the community efforts to bring the different sectors in the community together to try to, that's why I really like the objective, the first one, right? Prioritize indigenous knowledge to foster environmental trust, inclusion, and confidence. I think it's not only government and government, but also hopefully, in our community, this would be the case. My second question is, now, have we identified who are the groups or the indigenous organizations that we can include in the consultation process? So do we have a list of those organizations of important people, community leaders that we can work with?
Thank you to the chair, Councilor Al. We've targeted Musqueam as our northern border, and we've tried to reach out to Tawasin as well, and on the southern side of Richmond. Those are the two identified communities.
Okay, and perhaps there could be more, but we can find out more in the process.
All right. Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much, and thanks for your work on this. Thanks for the clarification. So basically, this is an internal document then for the city of Richmond, am I not correct? From what we've last night, because I agree with everything you've got here, especially the focus areas and the guidelines. This is our document.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you, Councilor McNulty. Yes, this is our document that we're.
Okay, I appreciate that. At what point, I know Councillor Liu and I have taken a number of courses from the First Nations University of Canada, and I've gone through, at least two programs, which have been very, very extensive over a matter of days. At what stage do we consult with the Musqueam Council to engage from their point of view some of the issues that we have? I know we have to train our staff, but while we're training our staff and doing those things, our perspective may not be the same as their perspective, especially the Musqueam, which are really the ones in our territory.
Yes, to the chair, Councilor McNulty. Yes, we had it in there. So in our initial meetings, we identified this is it'll guide the process, and depending on what level of engagement, whether it be community, leadership, or staff, that's who will decide on how the process will go through for the engagement.
So we really haven't reached out to I'll call it the Musqueam Band Council as such, of what the group that the mayor would lead when we met with him. I'm talking the chief and everybody from
Thank
Musqueam.
you. Through the chair, Councilor McNulty, I have spoken to the chief.
Okay.
After that as well. He's the main contact for council. I don't speak to any of the council members, go through the chief.
So he knows we're doing this kind of thing. Excellent, thank you.
Councilor, let's see, Galanders.
Thanks. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the report. I agree with the guiding principles as well, and the focus areas. I think it's well worded. I would like to acknowledge the different calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, right? And I think that a lot of those are probably included in the guiding principles. Like if you look at the ones that are specific to municipalities, you can pull out, and I think they're probably summarized in there. But it would be good to have a, from now until you're done the strategy, to identify which of those calls to action we're going to be able to meet and when. So just to see like a measured outcome. When I go to attachment 1, so that's after GP8, I'm just looking at the timeline, and I'm a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks as though after the framework, we're right at the beginning of this, correct? And then, so if we endorse this, you move forward with meeting with Indigenous communities, there's going to be a steering committee, develop a strategy, and then the community engagement piece. It looks like there's a community engagement piece where there's going to be a Let's Talk survey and everything, and getting data from the public. And then there's going to be a revised strategy development, and then on the next page it says there's going to be another community engagement with another Let's Talk survey. So I don't understand that really, because I think in something like this is something we have to do. The general public doesn't obviously consultation is always very important, but we don't necessarily want to go out of our way to get every single person's opinion when they're not experts in this area. Like, I think that the consultation, the community engagement piece could be more just, like you have a steering committee, people who, in the community who want to be involved, get involved. They write letters or put a call out, like, we're doing this, what do you think? And get some information from the people that are interested in participating just once. Not have to go back again, because I mean, our participation on Let's Talk is so low as it is. I just don't see the value. I think it's going to slow us down. I think it would be.
Let's get their reaction.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Hang on. There you go.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders. The first, really the first phase 1 to 6 is developing the framework for the strategy. It's not the actual strategy itself. So it's really working with the Indigenous communities to develop a framework to move forward. And then we would, the proposal is to go to the community and talk to them about how that framework, if we're on the right track, the framework's on the right track. Once we get feedback from the community, we'll come back to council with a revised framework and then begin work on the strategy itself. And then once we have that strategy developed, then our goal was to go back to the community and do another round of community engagement on the strategy before bringing that formalized back to council.
Okay, so just a wrap up comment on it, I think it's more valuable to look at what the calls to action are, liaise with other municipal governments and see what they've done in order to implement, to talk to the various Indigenous groups and bands and see how we can incorporate these calls to action. And that's a lot more important than just getting feedback from the public who generally don't really know about this stuff anyway. This is something that municipalities have a responsibility to do. And if someone from the public doesn't think we need to do anything, we don't need to listen to that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just don't see the value of that much community engagement on this particular thing.
They may have perspectives that we want to hear,
Yeah,
so that makes it worthwhile.
it's good to hear them. I just don't know about how much it's going to slow us down or going back more than once.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for this report. You mentioned that there's professional development, and I'm wondering if council can be invited to attend some of these or to partake in them to also grow our own professional development in this realm. Because like Councillor McNulty said, that First Nations University of Canada program came out, and it came out for staff, and we got some quick email, and that was the last we ever heard of it. And so a couple of us jumped on it and took it, and I think lots of other people didn't even know about it, and it just flew past, and that was the end anyone ever heard of it. And I think certainly sounds like there's interest around this table to attend some of these. I have some thoughts on the community consultation as well. I think we're going to get a huge range of where people think we should land on this, and I think where it's appropriate is probably somewhere in the middle. Reconciliation is about the coming together. So I don't know that it's necessarily about going through a laundry list that was prepared by a group of people some years ago. And while there's validity in it, I think that we're really trying to create a relationship and trying to bring the community of Richmond into that relationship with the Musqueam, with our Indigenous neighbors, partners, community members. And I think that's the relationship we're looking for, is that feeling of us growing together as a community versus we just did this laundry list of stuff and they're like, well, we didn't ask you to do that necessarily, right? We're looking for how we move together, and we've started some of the process by having breaking bread together and being together. And I think you're going to come up with some more things for us as a community and together with the appropriate groups to move together. So thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment and question. First of all, I'm really appreciative to have an Indigenous Relations Manager, otherwise we wouldn't be at this stage. I do acknowledge that by the end of next year, 2025, we'll only be at step 6 of 23, but that's the process and it's great to be on it. My question that remains is in the end of the next steps section, it mentions additional, in addition to gathering feedback from council, engagement with various council advisory committees may occur. I'm just curious which advisory committees that refers to. I'm assuming one of them is the newly formed First Nations Building Committee, which Councillor Au, Councillor Day, and Councillor Hobbs is on, and that's going to be working towards the plan for the First Nations bunkhouse or longhouse. And I'm hoping that the committee doesn't work too hard, too fast without being appreciative of the strategy that's in development. So I'm assuming that's one of the committees that you're work closely with?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that possibly could be a committee. Certainly, we will work with the clerk's office to determine and work with administration to determine which committees really align with the framework and the strategy that's being developed. But certainly, the one that you mentioned would be an advisory committee that we would be seeking some input.
Great, thank you.
All right, may I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, next item is the FIFA, the referral. Remember, this came to us, we had options, 2 and 3, and then there was thoughts that something in the middle was more appropriate, and so that's what we have in front of us, right?
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct.
So, anything further to add to your report?
Nothing further to add to the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so we'll go to Councillor Gillanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this. I definitely think we need to do some of these things. As far as it being somewhere in the middle, the thing that I noticed was that if you look at the kickoff event, we're changing it from a 2-day kickoff event to a 1-day kickoff event. So that's 50% of what we were going to do. And then when you look at the signature event, the 3-day event is going to a 1-day event. So that's a third of what we were going to do. But the cost of the budget only went down by 100,000 out of 700,000. So I'm just not sure value-wise, like I don't understand why value-wise it's not significantly less money or that we're not still doing significantly more of the events. The numbers just aren't jiving for me.
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders. So with the proposed budget, with the proposed campaign, there are many fixed costs that we can't reduce. So
Right.
the number of events that we offer, if we reduce the number of events, those fixed costs remain. So such as licensing, screen rental or purchase, those sort of things will remain at that same level.
Do you think there's a way to keep the city contribution at the 200,000, but to, instead of 300,000, but to, since those fixed costs are already there, to expand the events, like the signature event and maybe just the signature event, say, to keep it at a 3-day? And, I mean, I don't know, I just don't see. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I don't know. I'm interested to hear what other people have to say.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for this. I think this is quite interesting. I think there's an opportunity to maybe dovetail a little bit more with our cultural harmony plan. You know, have some sort of a World Cup cook-off, that kind of thing, invite. And because we're so far out, we can approach community groups to come forward, and instead of having food trucks, we could actually have different groups. Like, you know, we have people that produce a lot of chow mein every year that might be interested in, and maybe it's too much, but it's a smaller scale than the Salmon Festival, so they might be interested in coming out and doing something. We had another group selling samosas as a fundraiser, and so there's various different community groups that might be interested in some sort of cook-off, and then it's also an opportunity for everyone to sort of, you know, represent different countries and have that cultural opportunity in this. Now, switching over, we get licenses, right, to be able to allow groups to publicly, like, play the game, right? How does that work? Like, would we be able to, say, give a license for the night to Kids Sport and they could host an event at the River Rock, for example? and raise funds for kids sport.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Liu, the FIFA hasn't released their licensing agreements yet. We're working very closely with the City of Vancouver, who is in direct contact with FIFA and the FIFA planning team. So that is one of the questions that we have posed to the City of Vancouver, and we're waiting for an answer. The FIFA, we've really relied on previous licensing that's taken place. But our campaign is quite unique because we're looking at multiple days at multiple locations. And so we're trying to get some clarity on the licensing and how the FIFA licensing works for match viewing.
Okay, because I've got a bunch of groups that are super interested in this opportunity. They've got kids that play soccer, whatever. Like, I think there's a huge groundswell in the community that's interested in this. The River Rock said they're willing to donate their River Rock show theater. It's 980 seats, so you could have quite a bit of a community event there, you know, raising funds or, you know, having a community party for, you know, your various different sport groups and that kind of stuff. So I think it's a huge opportunity if we're allowed to show the games.
Councillor Heath.
On the licensing topic, do you have a ballpark figure of how much this may be?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we really only have what's been offered in the past, so past tournaments. And the last figure that we had received was between $10,000 and $14,000 for a license. We have been told, the City of Vancouver has said that because this is in North America and the awareness is quite heightened, they think that that figure is going to be a little bit higher, but we don't know.
Is it per license or just a general license, which would give you the ability to hand out the viewing to several organizations?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the previous versions have been a general license, but they haven't brought out stipulations yet and guidelines around licensing. So that's essentially what we're waiting for to hear from FIFA and what their model will be for viewing licenses for 2026.
So let me just do an example here. We have $200,000, say, of taxpayers' money that could increase based on whatever FIFA determines their licensing fee will be.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Let's just use a ballpark figure, say 200,000, we come up at the end of the day with some formula for 200,000 of taxpayer dollars. That could actually increase based on whatever FIFA's fees are going to be.
Through the chair, Councillor Heed, we have in the budget, we do have a budget for licensing. If it goes over and above the budget that we have in place, then certainly we're going to look at how what the next steps will be for that match viewing, because it's just I guess in some regards we are at the mercy of FIFA, but we're not going to be paying an astronomical amount just to be able for match viewing. And so City of Vancouver, they have the same type of scenario with their Fan Fest. Hopefully we'll be able to, along with some other municipalities, find out what the fee structure and the guidelines will be.
Well, the City of Vancouver certainly has more of an opportunity, given the fact the games are there, and their practice facility at Killarney is there too. And I know there was some discussions trying to get it here to Richmond, but that's gone now. Bars and restaurants. And I recall having policed World Cup events outside of Canada, and the finals that were in particular areas. For example, the Italians would be on Commercial Drive, the Argentinas would be a little further down Commercial Drive, England would be on Granville Street. Do they have to pay a licensing fee? For example, if one of the bars is going to have a somewhat of a party or something like that, do they have to pay a licensing fee?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, they do have to pay a non-commercial licensing fee,
But ours
just
would,
to be able to show the matches.
but ours would be a commercial licensing fee.
Correct.
Okay. The other questions I have with respect to this, I think I'll wait for the motion to be on the floor, Mayor, before I ask those questions.
Mayor Brody, may I just clarify? Yeah, thank you. Through you to Councillor Heed, I just want to be clear that should the licensing fee go over the budgeted amount, staff would come back to council for further direction. There wouldn't be any inclination to go beyond the budgeted amount of $200,000.
So we may have to cut back on other things or may give it up or any kind of possibility if those licensing fees really skyrocket. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I have 4 questions. First off is, where does the licensing fee fit into our GP 29 Attachment 5, the new campaign optional budget? There's another line item, say licensing.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it's under the event production.
Event production, okay, thanks. Next one, looking at the Richmond Kicks grant program description in the report, and then the total and the budget for that is, for the two things, $40,000. So as I just heard the discussion with Councillor Heed, so if the neighborhood or the community group wanted to do their own, they'd have to get a non-commercial license. If they're doing it through us, through this Kicks grants program, does that mean they're waived, like they're just going to use our commercial grant? Or our commercial license? Sorry?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that is correct.
Okay, so it would save them considerably, and then they could use this money to host the event side of things as opposed to getting the license. Okay. Next one I had is in this schedule of events on our attachment 2 proposed event schedule. Right now we have nothing set on July 15th, which is the second of the semifinal matches. I think that might be worth planning something on that day, and seeing under the campaign budget again, the kickoff event cost is $15,000. I would wonder if we could do another such size event. Again, I don't know what that's going to look and feel like yet, but maybe at that $15,000 secondary kickoff event could be on that semifinal day. And I don't know, maybe we take that away from the Kicks grants program or somewhere else. Just putting that out there. And then my last question, do we know if some of the teams will be using Richmond soccer fields, either city, park, or school district fields that will, like Argentina, will they be coming to McNair or something? Do we know where if they're gonna be set up at all in Richmond?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there hasn't been an indication that a team will be coming to Richmond. The only there's 2 designated practice facilities that have, as Councillor Heed mentioned. There hasn't been discussion of any others to this date.
Okay, those are my questions, thanks.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you very much for the copious report. I just hope with every event we get a report like this. It's pretty detailed. I have some of the same concerns and questions of that the others have brought up. So the licensing fee is included in the budget up to a certain point.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty.
25,000 or whatever it is.
It is included in the
All
budget.
right, well, that gives me a little bit of something. Other than a party, because basically this is what it is, I'd like to see all the community centers involved, to be quite frank with you, not just 5. But what is the involvement specifically of the soccer club in Richmond? What are they actually doing? In that, I'd love to see promotion of soccer in this as well, and just watching a soccer game doesn't do it. Councillor Liu brought up cultural harmony, for example. Well, we have the World Cup, Nations Cup. We've got every nationality out there playing at whatever, and we have community groups. We have everybody is it. We've had Davu and Steveston have his own World Cup, and Steveston community everybody picks a flag from the Irish to whatever. So I'm wondering what their involvement is and how they are thinking of involvement to encourage participation in soccer at all levels. Other than, bringing in somebody to do it. And I'm thinking providing for groups that don't play soccer, some of the Asian community, some of the Afghan community, et cetera, where there's an opportunity to have some instruction during that week and it's free. Are they giving us indication of that at all?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty. These are discussions we've had and will continue to have with these groups. So for example, Richmond United Football Club, they are hosting their own tournament. And that is something that we would attend. We would participate in the tournament with obviously the FIFA license. We'd bring the screen in order to promote soccer through the community. Additionally, one of the other dates is to look at the June 14th. Sorry, this is on GP20 in the proposed schedule. June 14th, for example, we're looking at potentially a soccer showcase through the TSS Rovers at Hamilton Community Center. So these would be opportunities to engage these groups, have them do their showcases, but as well through different programming that we could work on, we could also see how these groups could provide workshops and clinics to youth. Again, this is all part of the program that would take place should we get endorsement.
I'm looking for, and that's great. I'm looking for beyond that. Not every kid can afford $3,500 for soccer season, okay? But if I'd like to have my son or daughter out to get some instruction for a day with whatever soccer players there are, et cetera, is free, I might be able to think about coming into the program. That's where I'm going, and that includes everybody at a base level, not just the Excel one. We can have senior soccer in this room. Well, we can't have soccer. Let's have walking soccer. Okay, so everybody here can participate. Great activity. Let's get some people out there understanding what is soccer and kick a soccer ball. I'm thinking of it from that point of view. Okay, because I noticed you mentioned the Whitecap soccer legends, et cetera. I don't know if you realize Richmond's had 6 major soccer legends in the world. They all played in Europe. I'll let you figure that one out. But I'll leave that with you. I'm not finished yet. I do have a couple of questions. On page 18, securing the entire amount in 25 is essential, significant for these products and services related. What are the products and services related?
Through the
What do we, you said product and services, other than the license, what are they?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, in order for us to be able to activate an entire schedule, things like screens, things like even if we're looking at soccer equipment and soccer-related equipment in 2026, we're anticipating there be either a shortage or because of the World Cup coming up in 2026, there will be a huge demand, and we're worried that prices may go up. And so what we want to do is, our goal is to try to look at as much as we can in 2025 while inventory is available and while prices remain relatively low, that we're able to capitalize on that.
Have we budgeted, it mentioned in your final impact, Your Worship, this budget on page 17 does not include staff campaigning planning resources. How many staff are going to be involved and what's the cost of that? But also, I'm following up Councillor Heed, what is going to be the cost of the RCMP and the overtime of the RCMP for supervising all these events?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, the campaign planning staff are not included in the budget. Those duties will come under existing portfolios already done by people in the city. The budget does include specialized staff, running specialized equipment, delivering equipment to the sites, staff there to deliver the programming, so event staff support. So those are the types of roles that are included in the budget, but the campaign event planning resources would fall under existing staff resources.
Okay, I'd like to know what that amount is. You may be in kind or whatever, but I'd like to know what it is, because the cash is one thing, the in-kind, the staff involved and taken away from other duties is another. So I'd like that recorded and on it. What about the RCMP? Do we have anything in here, a contingency for the RCMP?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, the OIC supports our plan. Currently, right now, the RCMP hasn't identified any FIFA-related event in Vancouver, outside of Vancouver, as a major event. And so RCMP have not dedicated resources to FIFA activities as of yet, until that time comes where RCMP designates it a major event. But in discussions with the OIC, he supports the plan, and that if there is a threat or there's an analysis, then he will certainly support the event through his resources.
I think it's important because FIFA is going to ask for security. As you know, any of us that have been involved in anything from games, et cetera, the first thing that breaks you, regardless, is security. And beyond it, I think overall, I just hate being in the shadow of Vancouver. Knowing how Vancouver runs, I think we need to run our own show. And I think I'd like to see, Your Worship, all the community centers involved in some activity, and we give them a block amount and let them run their own show that day or whatever is in there. And on that, and we go from there. Our contribution is only $200,000, correct?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, yes, that's correct.
And $400,000 from tourism?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, yes.
And that's their maximum amount as well?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're $600,000 budget. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Day?
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So I just had a couple questions. On page 16, we have projected attendance for 4 different types of events, and I like that. But on page 15, under Richmond Kicks grant program, there's Stream 1, which is neighborhood level, which is Richmond-based individuals and neighborhood groups would apply for basically $500 to host their own party. Stream 2 is a community level. Richmond-based nonprofits would apply for up to $2,000 to hold a public FIFA-related celebration. So you've got the number of expected attendees on page 16, but not on Stream 1 and Stream 2. Do you have a number for those?
Through the chair to Councilor Day.
Just a minute. Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councilor Day, the reason those were not included in the projected attendance is because those are subject to applications that we received through the community. We just didn't feel it was accurate to provide an estimate to those events.
Yeah, I guess what I'd be looking for is numbers. Like, you know, if you can't bring in X amount, then you don't qualify for the 500 or you don't qualify for the 2,000. Because we don't want to have, you know, a family having a party of their own, getting $500 to have a party in their basement, right? So, I mean, we've got to be a little more accountable on those two. But I don't think they don't add up to much, because I believe they're under community events and viewing parties, $30,000. Is that right?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, those events, again, they could be neighborhood block party events. So those could be, again, through the criteria that we would establish, similar to the neighborhood block party program and the Community Celebration Grants Fund. There are criteria that these applications would have to meet. So again, it wouldn't just be one family having their party in their basement. Rather, there is a criteria that staff would analyze and work to issue that permit.
So when will we see that criteria?
The criteria, I mean, again, we would establish that similar to what is already in existence with these programs.
With the existing neighborhood programs and okay. I'm really happy about the tourism kicking in $400,000 and the city only kicking in $200,000. That I think is wonderful. But I am a little concerned that I would want to see that criteria for the neighborhood level, because I don't want to see $500 going to something that could be better spent. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now, so your recommendation is that we go with this, the new campaign, what you call the new campaign option, right?
That's correct.
Chair, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. Now, in terms of a resolution, I don't think you've said that in there, and so the first line, I think, should read that the new campaign option to celebrate the FIFA World Cup, et cetera, be endorsed, and one-time funding is outlined for the budget. So can I have that motion? Moved and seconded. More discussion? Counselor Heed.
Yes, I'm not going to be voting in favor of this, and I just want to explain why. And I had conversations with some of our community members, including Mr. Livingston, who many of you know at this particular table. And I have to agree with some of that, in that I'm not in favor of contributing any taxpayer dollars for groups to have a party. What I strongly support is anything to do with youth engagement. And as Councillor McNulty spoke about, having our community centers, which would include the Hamilton area and all of the other community centers, money available for their societies or boards that want to host these events. And I think that is probably a wiser use of the taxpayer dollars. I do not support taxpayer dollars being used for people to party, although it's, $200,000 is $200,000. When you look at the option that's on the floor right now, the total is 600,000, and certainly tourism, Richmond contributing as much as they are. I'm sure we can look for that separately, but the taxpayer dollars, I have substantial difficulty using that for people to party and have a good time.
Counselor Wolf.
Yes, I'd like to propose an amendment that we, like I mentioned during my last comments, that we move some of the funding that's currently set under the Richmond Kicks grant program. That was kind of just referred to as money for people to throw a party, to move 15, I think, maybe I'll get staff to comment on this first, to move 15,000 of that, 15,000 of the 40,000, that's Richmond Kicks, to have a second Summer West Fest, similar to, I don't know what that exactly entails, at West Richmond for both the semifinal days, as that is the location of the big soccer field and the field house that we're working on, that we have kind of a 2-day event there over the semifinals. So I'd like to move the amendment that we take some of the funding from the Kicks grant program and pull off another kickoff-sized event on that second day. Good staff comment, is that doable with that amount of money?
Is it doable? No. I want to clarify this before we go forward. Is it doable for that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we will use, if this is endorsed, we will really do a deep dive in 2025 and work with all of the communities. And certainly if there is an adjustment to be made in the schedule, we'll be able to do that within our existing budget. It's going to be incumbent on the communities. This is like what we're proposing is grassroots, community-led. And so what we really want to do is make sure that they're comfortable with the proposals that we're putting in front of them, and that we've worked really closely so far. And so certainly the schedules can change, and some of the events can change throughout the 6 weeks.
When would we get the final?
To the chair, we would bring back once we have a final schedule, we will bring that forward to council. And that will outline not only the schedule, but outline, we've given you a synopsis of programming that could take place and preliminary discussions, but we can bring back in more detailed programming for each event.
And when would we expect that? By the end of this year?
We would take, to the chair, we would take 2025, at least the beginning of 2025, to really sit down with each of the community groups to establish that. So, you know, we're really looking at 2025 as a planning year with those groups, and we can provide an update to you.
Can you say, but, and I'm just, to Councillor Wolf, what I'm thinking is, if we said, we made a number 3, which says that the final, staff is directed to bring back the final schedule with all details by the end of 2025. Now, they've heard your comments, okay? And that would be taken into account. Would that suffice, rather than your motion to actually make it hard and fast right at this time when it's, by the sound of things, it's not a hard and fast at this time, it's really a framework.
To the chair, that's correct.
My amendment was not just the event side of things, but also shifting some of the funding amount from
Yes.
an area that has been expressed to have a concern.
Well, it'd be to provide more detail, including specific funding by the end of, for each category, by the end of 2025.
Okay. Yep.
Okay?
Yep. I'm
All
fine.
right. So that would be number 3, to amend by adding that the formal schedule with details including the finances and the events by the end of 2025 would be brought forward. Okay, so is that's moved, and is it seconded? Seconded. Okay, on the amendment, Councilor McNulty, is that on the amendment?
No,
Oh,
I actually want to move in
okay, I'll come back.
before we start spending money moving money around.
I'll come back to you. Okay, so then on the amendment for number 3, all those in favor? Any opposed? That, you're opposed?
Well, no, I'm not opposed.
Okay, so that is carried, and we will go to Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, Your Worship, I think, I have a question. The programs in each of the community centers is kind of similar. What is the value of that program? Because I'd like to see each community center, let's say, get $5,000 and run their own program with the soccer, like Hamilton, let's take, for example. They're not going to run the same thing as Hugh Boyd because they don't have an artificial turf, okay? And they'll run a lovely program for their people out there. Why can't we give them X dollars cash and say guaranteed? Because if I look at the program, it involves all the centers. It's going to come out of somewhere. Or are we going to say, well, here's what we've got, and this is what you're going to do? So my question, what is the value of it? Because most of it's the same. Everything from, I think I got face painting to interactive soccer. So how much are we going to spend in Hamilton? How much money is going to actually go to the Hamilton area and the
What's
community
the
center?
process?
To the chair, to Councilor McNulty. So that, the process would be going back to all of the, if this is endorsed, we would go back to all of the community groups, and we would open up discussions around what their event could look like, what activities can take place, what the programming, each, obviously each community is very unique and very different. And so certainly we want to see, because this is really grassroots and community-led, we want to see a very unique event in their area that's, that meets all of their needs.
And I thank you for that answer, is what I was hoping for. But my question here is, it's better if you went and you had an amount, let's say $5,000 per community center, and you said to Hamilton, you have $5,000, this is what you're able to, or whatever the amount is, this is what you're able to do, it stays in Hamilton. We don't borrow it because we're short somewhere else, or we haven't done any. To me, that gets back to the grassroots. It gets back to what Councillor Day's saying, gets what Councillor Heap's saying. We give it to the thing. To have something, one thing in the center of town where people are not going to get to is my concern. And it also would develop not only the spirit, but also develop the sport in that community. It allows them to do it, Your Worship. That's why I was a little hesitant about the past when before we start throwing money around. I'd like staff to come back and say, yeah, we need $50,000 to, well, whatever it is. Okay, and we only got 200, so what goes? Or what gets trimmed? Because to me, the base community people is more important than any of the other stuff that you've got, to be quite frank with you. Whether we kick it off with what's going to be on TV on every channel or not, or we kick it off with something very nice over in Burkeville. So I
So
don't,
what's the
I don't
process?
think he can do it now, but
What's the process for the various community centers? Because I'm looking up GP 21, 22, 23, and it's got all kinds of different activities at the various, what appear to be the community centers.
commonality. though.
Like on page 22, Hamilton Celebration Theatre Football Club. Okay, so that involves the Hamilton Community Association? Yes?
Correct.
Okay, so is that did that come from them or does that come from us, that list?
To the chair, it's a bit of we did consult with the Hamilton community, but once it's endorsed, that will give us the impetus to go back to them and really detail out what it is that they're looking for and what it is. So this is a bit of a preliminary from us, along with some consultation from them.
So that really becomes part of Councillor Wolf's amendment, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Because we're going to get more detail on that issue by the end of next year, when we'll know a whole lot more than we do right now.
That's correct.
Okay, so in terms of the payment, is there any payment that goes to the community center, or is it all like basically city-led at the community center?
To the chair, it would be it's infrastructure that maybe we would purchase, that we would help bring to their event, like the screen, some activation, but it would include what they want to do as far as an event. So it's a bit of a mix of certain services that we will provide to enhance their event, but really we're looking for the Hamilton area to be able to deliver a community event that's good, that's right for their community.
With the details to come.
Correct.
So I would like to make a motion, if I would, that we budget from city money, $5,000 per community center to consult with them to have their celebration in their own community. And you go to them with an amount and that's it. You've got any more. If they want to put extra money in and do other things, that will be up to them.
This is for the purposes of consultation or for the events themselves?
For the consultation and the events, yeah. You can't go to them and say, we're going to do this if you're not going to pay for it. Okay,
Well,
5,000 is nothing
are
to put an
paying
event on.
For some of it, aren't we?
To the chair, that's correct.
Well,
So
for me to support this, Your Worship, we have to get to the grassroots. And to me, this is the grassroots, is going back to each community association, giving them an amount of money. I don't care, it could be 4,000, but an amount of money that they can have a celebration in their own backyard. And then we still have other monies when you look at the budget to have the rest of the party.
To the chair, so the model, what we've come up with so far is we've had initial discussions with the community groups, community associations. They have shown a very strong interest to host and to participate. We will bring some resources, mostly that we can take from event to event to event. That would be our portion. They said that they would activate their community, and that would be a normal, most of the communities, they have events throughout the year. And so what they've said to us is that we're going to take our event and we're going to target into the 6 weeks of 2026. And so what we're going to do is we will activate our event at Hamilton, and we would come in and we would enhance that with some other additional resources. And the budget And that's what the budget outlines. The budget outlines that those are the materials and equipment that we would need to purchase and bring from event to event to event. And so that's what the makeup of the budget is.
And the detailed budget and detailed event plan is coming to us, which will include that by the end of next year.
Correct.
And you have the point that is made, is that we have to make sure that we continue to include the various grassroots organizations as they've been known. Now, with that explanation, do you still need to?
Don't want to move an amount so they understand what they are up against. I hear Hamilton is going to get,
Just what is the motion?
the motion is that we budget for each community center $5,000 to have a celebration during this period of time.
Is it seconded? Second. Okay, so there is an amount for each community center, isn't there?
To the chair, there is, I mean, there is. It's not, we haven't dedicated a certain dollar figure to every single area. Now, every area that you see kind of on attachment two. The way that we have built the budget is we knew that we would need to have some infrastructure in place to help support Hamilton, South Arm, Burkeville, and that is the money that we've allocated in the budget. So the money in the budget is resources, materials, supplies that we think are necessary to help enhance their event.
Okay, I'm not going to support this amendment because I think it's already included in what we're doing, and it's going to be included in the event detail and the budget that is going to be coming back by the end of next year. So, Councillor Hobbs.
Oh, thanks to the chair. You just kind of said what my question was, which is it will be in what we get back in a year, right? Okay, thanks.
Councillor Glanders.
Thanks. On attachment 5, it says community events and viewing parties, $30,000. And on the sponsorship deck on attachment 6, it says community events, $5,000 per event. So I'm just wondering what the difference is between what's in the budget and what Councillor McNulty would be asking for. What would be the difference? If we've already said 30,000 and then we're looking for sponsorship for 5,000 per event, it sounds like each event, South Arm Neighborhood Block, every community event, we're looking for $5,000 for each event anyway?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, we would be looking for this as an opportunity. Again, FIFA's sponsorship regulations and requirements would certainly be something that we would have to work within. So looking for that 5,000 is again, it all depends on what we're able to.
Yeah, that might not happen, but then the 30,000 that we've already allocated in attachment 5, we're thinking is approximately how much per community?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, so the 30,000 that is allocated, that is the support staff to activate, also the specialized staff that would be delivering equipment, setting up equipment, a lot of the electronics with a screen, needing to be set up, the speakers and all that sort of thing. That's all included in that cost.
And so then the difference of what Councillor McNeil, it's not just.
Okay, Councillor Heed.
Yes, just for clarification. So what Councillor McNulty is proposing an amendment to is 5,000 per community center, and I believe there's around 8 community centers here. It's 40,000. And that would be to the Community Center Association for them to do what they want. That won't be for staff, our city staff. That won't be for our equipment and all that. That'll be for them to actually figure out their celebration that they're going to have. And I just want to clarify, Councillor McNulty, that, for example, 40,000 would come out of the proposed $200,000 budget.
City money, I'm not going to allocate chosen money. We'll talk about
Or it's not going to be in addition to the 200,000.
It's out of the existing budget.
in the 200.
So are they, under the plan that we have in front of us, and we'll get further detail later, are the various community associations going to get money?
To the chair, that is not the model that the framework that we anticipate.
All right, so if we want them to have some money, won't we have to approve what they are doing, since it is city money?
To the chair, if the model is that we give them money in addition to the support and resources that we think that they're going to need, that would come back to council.
No, it's here, it's right now. The amendment says $5,000 out of the budget for each community center. Okay, and so.
Mr.
that's
Mayor,
the
may I
Yeah,
jump in?
go ahead.
Yes. The money within this budget, within the 200,000, could be allocated in the way that is being suggested. There's no problem with that. I think one opportunity is that for each community center event, and if there are 8 community associations, so there could be 8, each of them may want some of the same things. So it wouldn't be reasonable probably to buy 8 different of the same things for all 8 events. So we wouldn't want to give each community center the money separately necessarily. So my recommendation would be to work within the $30,000 that is there for community events and viewing parties. And if you'd like to grant that directly to the community associations, 30,000 divided by 8, 3,750, I think. And then we would work beyond that to use some of the rest of the funding for equipment and supplies that would support all 8 of them together.
So that's the money, the 30,000 from,
Community events and viewing parties.
which is $30,000. All right, so back to Councilor McNulty. The suggestion is to make it 3,750, so I can,
From what I've been hearing,
just a minute, go ahead.
From what I've been hearing in the discussion around the table, I'm sorry, I don't have faith in you, to be quite frank with you. I'm not going to put it right on the table. You're skimming around. I think $5,000, I'll put it on the table. If the council wants to turn it down, fine. I'm going to give it my best shot.
Okay,
And I
where's it
simply-
coming from?
It's coming from this budget of $200,000.
No, but tell me exactly where.
Well, the kickoff event and the party events.
So,
There's 45,000 there. You want me to take it there, I'll take it there.
so it's $5,000.
I mean, the CAO said maybe we don't need 8 times the footballs or whatever. No, but the potential is there in case we do need 8 times the footballs. Okay?
How about up to 5,000?
Up to 5,000, I would accept that.
Okay, and it would come from the kickoff events and the community events.
Yeah.
And also, we would add that for each community center, but the city has to approve what they have in mind.
Well, they may have something, different ideas. Now we're being Big Brother. I'm sorry.
Well, it's our money. That's been reflected.
That's why I want to give it to them so they can do the celebration as they see fit within the parameters of what we've got here. So,
But if we say that each one has $5,000, and that the point has been made that some of the stuff out of that $5,000 may be common to more than one community center, we don't need to give them that $5,000, but they'll have $5,000 in value
that's right, and they can give us a budget on what they're going to spend it on.
for approval by the city.
All right, I'll accept
Okay, all right. So we seem to have gone astray here. What I've got is that the budget, so this will be number 4, to budget up to $5,000 for each community center to be taken from the kickoff and the community events aspect of the budget, and for the program to be as approved by the city. That's what I've got. Okay, so that's the motion. Okay, now, we have one further comment from Councillor Day, and I'm going to call the question on this amendment.
I just have a question to staff. I agree that having one kit is sensible, and then everybody, all 8 community centers use the same kit. It's ridiculous to order 8 banners or 8, pop-up tents or whatever. So would we be able to create, under technical needs and activation kit, to create a commonly used kit that would then go out so that if they do get up to $5,000, they're spending it sensibly on things that they need and not just what we already got?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we would create a kit that's a common kit for all of the events.
And then like set a schedule that, you can have it any of these days so that each community center would then book the kit for that particular day.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to call the question. The motion is number 1 has been changed to specify the new campaign option. Number 2, one-time funding be required as part of the budget. Number 3, the final schedule, as we've outlined, is to be provided by the end of next year. And a budget of this $5,000 for each community center out of where we talked about and to be approved by the city. So that's the motion.
So we're putting it all in one?
Yes, it is all one. Why? Do you want separation?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to separate.
Councillor McNulty separated.
Okay, I'm going to call, they want number 4 separated. Okay, on number 1, 2, 3, all those in favor? Any opposed? It is carried with Councillor Heed opposed. Number 4, which is the budget of $5,000, that discussion, up to $5,000. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Okay, there is nothing to that. Thank you, gentlemen. Housing Priorities Grant Program. Anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
My question is just, there's 2 components in it, 2 major components in it, and then one of the components is further broken down, but 2 major components. Is the money, half the money for each component, or is it just on an application basis and see how far it goes?
Through your worship, that's correct. There's no set amount allocated to any one program.
All right. Someone want to move it? Moved and seconded. Discussion, Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair, thanks for the report. It's a big chunk of money, and we can do great things with it. So just 2 quick questions. One is that it mentions in the report that things will be completed by December 2027, I think. So can you just explain briefly what it means to be completed? Because clearly things won't be completely built or anything. So what stage in the process would we have to be at?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, to be eligible for the project, you have to have either conditional approval, so 3rd reading of a zoning amendment bylaw, or have a development permit issued. So by that, you're already very close to being shovel-ready. So the grant dollars would be allocated at the time of receiving final.
Okay, and just the last question was, when I was reading it, I just needed to get a little clarification over when it's for providers, what kind of things would be eligible for this money? In my reading of it, from a layperson's point of view, I was wondering if operational things were included in that, and I don't think they are.
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, that's correct. So depending on the grant stream, so the grant stream that relates to city fees, what would be eligible would be building permit fees, development cost charges, site servicing costs would not be included, and development application fees.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Yes, just referring to page 33 in your analysis, and I just want to draw to council's attention here. And if you just give me clarification on this, and I certainly agree with your analysis here. But given the political environment we've gone through in trying to deal with some, use your words, persons experiencing homelessness, women and women with children fleeing violence, individuals with mental health and addiction challenges. And just to be cognizant of the fact that when you look at this type of money and your strategy involved, I don't think there's an appetite in this community for any of those. We've gone through heck, to use a calmer word, trying to deal with some of our social issues here in Richmond. So the point I want to make here is, if we weren't looking at those, what do you think we'd be spending the majority of the funds on or granting this for?
Through your worship, Councillor Heed, just to clarify, so the eligible projects would be projects that are adding low-end market rental units or units that are tied to BC Housing's household income limit. So there's not any specific target audience being sort of the subject of the grant money. It's more to bring more affordable housing to the community.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so this $35.9 million is over 3 years in a partnership with the federal government. If our government changes and the opposition has threatened they would kill a lot of these programs, what happens?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the city has an agreement with CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The grants come in 4 installments. We've received one already, and there's one that would be anticipated in March. It is budgeted, it is financed by the funding comes from the Government of Canada. So there could be funding at risk, but as it stands, the city has an agreement with CMHC for funding.
So as it stands, we'd be going for 10 million for 220 affordable units. That's on page 52. So that's already in stream. So no matter what happens with the federal election, that one's good.
Through the chair, sorry, I thought there was a question on the other side from the GMs. Through the chair to Councillor Day, the anticipation with the funding that exists and the March installment, there'll be the full 10 million for the program.
That one's safe. Initiative 1 is fast-tracking rental and affordable housing. What would the timeline be on that? I think we have to look at timelines for every single one of these initiatives.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the scope of this report is Initiative 2. Staff can provide, there's updates here for each of the initiatives, the 8 initiatives under the agreement.
Yep.
Certainly staff can provide more information via memo if you have questions. If you have specific questions on the initiatives, we can respond to them as well.
Okay, and then I like the number 6, pre-zone for rentals in appropriate areas. What is the definition of appropriate areas?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I think you're referring to Initiative 6?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is not the scope of the report. However, this would be the scope of the OCP review, which is ongoing.
Okay.
And through that process, those areas will be identified.
Okay, my last question is on page 42. We have a list of all the other cities and the grants that they're going to be offering. And we're not the same as the other grants. And like, for instance, in Delta, the grant would be $9,800 for all size of condos, whereas we have stepped it from $14,000 way up to $35,000. So what's the rationale for stepping it up as opposed to, like, I'm kind of confused why they're doing what they're doing, but if you could just speak to that.
Yes, through you, your worship, to Councillor Day. I can't speak to why Delta's is at $9,800.
Yeah.
In looking at what we're recommending as the $40,000, we looked at what would the development cost charge be on a 3-bedroom unit. That amounts to about $35,000. We looked at some of the projects that the city has made contributions towards, and those average out at about $40,000 per unit. So that was the basis for the number that we're recommending.
Well, I think you're spot on, because when I look at Langley offering $38,000 for everything, studio apartment, well, they're going to get a whole bunch of studio apartments. You know, you need family-friendly units. So I think that the way that you've structured it is very wise. Thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I agree with the comments from Councillor Day. I think that is structured well, and I appreciate all of this. I just want to make sure I understand So this is going to be for, obviously for a project that is ready to get off the ground, that's going to have to provide affordable housing in the inclusionary of a larger strata project, not a standalone affordable housing development, right?
Through your worship to Councillor Glanders, any project that goes above any mandatory minimum, so let's say you have to provide the 15% LEMR in the city center. If a developer were to come forward and say they want to put an extra 5% in, that 5% addition would be eligible for the funding.
What do you think the uptake's going to be on that?
Through your worship to Councillor Glanders, we're not sure. We do know there are projects that would be eligible, but we're not sure what the uptake overall will be.
Okay. Yeah.
If I could add, it's noted in the report that there are some unknowns in take-up. The point is to get the program out, and we note in the report a few times that we can bring it back to council for modifications as needed based on demand.
Yeah, just follow up, because if they're having problems making some of the numbers crunch, and they can take advantage of this, but only by adding some, it would hopefully be if we want to add a lot more 3-bedrooms, then we can get this funding, and that's going to make the overall picture a little more financially feasible. Like, it's not just a 1-for-1, then I could see the uptake being better, which is great. And then I'm also wondering, does this funding only, the grant program, is it only available for affordable housing, or could we also do something for a purpose-built rental project?
Through your worship to Councillor Glanders, it would only be for projects that are adding low-end market rental or hills-based units.
What about for a purpose-built rental project standalone that has a LEMR component to it?
Through your worship to Councillor Glanders, if, say, that example were being led by a nonprofit, they would be eligible for the grant money for the affordable housing component. There may be projects where a developer or a not-for-profit proposes to convert a market rental unit into a low-end market rental unit, and that portion would also be eligible.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Wolf.
Yeah, I think I echoed, or was going to mention a lot of the same questions. I guess all I have left is if we are not able to go with the pre-zoning method or factor in purpose-built renters and rental projects into this, we're really kind of at the mercy of what the market wants to decide. You mentioned that there's a lot of unknowns and with the uptake. I know you came to this number and you looked at other with the municipal scan, but did any builder or stakeholder group mention that this would entice them to do it, or we haven't gotten to that yet?
Through your worship, Councillor Wolf, we haven't had that level of engagement.
Okay, because I think it's quite critical that we get more of this housing. So if anything, maybe we should be starting higher just to get the traction of these types of projects into Richmond, and then kind of phase out the money rather than starting fairly low where municipal neighbors of ours are still going to be drawing the building projects there. So I don't know, is there anything here that you think it could entice people or developers to come to Richmond to build these type of projects here as opposed to somewhere else? Is there something I'm missing that's like the real shiny feature of this?
Well, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, you have to have an application fairly advanced to meet the timelines here. So the level of enticement from other community, I think, would be challenging. These are projects that we know, we don't know specifically the projects, but we know that there's some challenges financially, and this would be an important contributor to getting these projects going.
Right.
And that's the point of the project.
All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Moving on, thank you, gentlemen. Moving along to the fire vehicle replacement reserve. Chief Wishlove, anything to add to your report?
Good afternoon, Your Worship. I have nothing further to add to my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so we'd approve the money and then an additional level request would be considered. Be submitted, right?
That's correct.
Okay, comments, questions? Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much. I will support approving the additional amount. Through you to the chief. Did we ever get the truck that was approved in the previous council? We approved a fire truck a number of years ago. Has that been purchased and we've received it?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the last new fire engine that we received was in 2021. That would have been procured, or I think the approval would have been late 2019 or early 2020.
And we've, in the last 10 years then, how many new trucks have we had?
I'll have to get back to you on exactly how many new trucks we've received.
I guess, Your Worship, where I'm coming from, I support the fire rescue 100%. And we only had a new truck in 2021, which is 4 years old now. And many of our trucks, I'm sure, are not necessarily up to what we want. But I would hope if this goes through, that we give direction to update our fleet as much as possible over the next few years with all the things that are happening and what have you. We know that we need upgrades, and things do change. And I think it's when the chief says, whoever wrote the report says it takes 2 years to get a truck, we better start putting our orders in now, because we're not going to see it for 2 more years. And obviously, we'll have the money at $2 million a truck. So I would suggest we look to have some direction, have staff come back as soon as possible with an upgrade in terms of report for embellishing the fleet wherever. Because of the number of things that are out there, they're out there all the time. They're, they answer what, 1,300 calls a month. The trucks are rolling out, and we're going to hear one shortly, I'm sure. And so I support them 100%, and they got to have the finest equipment to protect the people of Richmond.
Well, the future needs are projected with that 600,000.
That's correct, Your Worship. That's what the future needs are for.
But that's only a portion of it. We spent a lot more than that, so I'd like to know what the real future needs are. How many trucks do we need?
All right. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. My first question is, I think, to finance, and if they could just comment on the balance of the emergency response fuel facility provision. So how much remains in there, as option 2 and 3 would be taking $5 million out of it.
Do you know that, or Mr. Chung, or our CAO?
Through your worship to Councillor Wolf, the approximate balance is 8.7 million.
All right. Great, thank you. Now to Fire Chief, just to clarify that question from Councillor McNulty, was the last fire truck we received the high-flow industrial pumper?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it was not. It was a regular frontline fire engine.
Okay, so then the one that we approved in 2021, using $800,000 from that account, that has not arrived?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Now, my further questions. Just, yeah, quite alarming to see the double the costs, double the wait times to get anything. One thing I did like in here, I think it's a good thing, is the discontinuation by the vendor of the current Richmond Fire Rescue Standard fire engine model. And the reason why I think that's a positive is I think this is perhaps that turning point where we can move to get our first electric fire engine. As we have flat ground here, we're not having to climb hills. We can park them and charge them. They can be deployed and then be an energy source where they're at. And so is there any comment on the potential for one or all of these to be electric?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, this year with the support of our folks in the procurement department here in the city, we reached out deeply into the market. And through the request for information process, we asked all of those questions. And we were given some really good up-to-date information as to how to best issue an RFP with that information and those requests in order to see if there is an opportunity for a hybrid truck, such as we've seen in the news recently.
When will we know if that's going to be the path we take?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, my understanding is that those hybrid trucks are actually more expensive than what we've identified here. And so the immediate purchase of the replacement trucks may not be an electric truck, but moving forward with the procurement plan, such as what Councillor McNulty suggested, there would be room and space for electric trucks to be considered into that plan.
Okay, just a final comment then. I'm hesitant to support option 2 and 3 because of what's in there, saying that the funding is going to extract $5 million from the Vancouver Airport Fuel Facility Corporation. I'd be more comfortable if it was taken from the major budget process, capital budget process. Reason for that is when we received the original $10 million from the Vancouver Airport Fuel Facility Corporation, that was contingent on us using it for emergency response for the jet fuel terminal that they plunked onto our island. I agree that we getting that high flow industrial pumper eventually would be a value with the money spent for the adjacent project or the adjacent fuel facility. But to just put $5 million into all the other fire trucks around the city, I think does a disservice to what that money is intended for. I value the fact that it was kind of unattached, so that money can go to anything, really, it seems. And so I think if there were a disaster and funding needed to be done to clean up or monitor, I think leaving them to police themselves and monitor themselves at the facility is a recipe for disaster. So I think we should be actually dipping into that fund to have our overhead monitoring of their facility, because as far as we know, we haven't heard of any leaks. But as far as they know, they haven't had to tell us about the leaks that they've been having or the potential disasters that were imminent, but they turned off the safety button or whatever. And so I'm just concerned that we're going to drain that funding down to 3.7, and that's not going to be enough to deal with the potential emergency response at the fuel facility. So at this point, unless I hear something else around the table, I'm not willing to support the options.
Thank you. Well, it is alarming that the price, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers that you quoted where it was the last fire truck in 2021. That's not that long ago. Cost 1.1 million, and now they're 2.2 million in 3 short years. I mean, why? I mean, I know everything costs more, but that's a huge change.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, very disappointing. Absolutely. I think there's been a number of impacts to the market that we as the city unfortunately do not have any control over. I can't specifically comment on exactly why the vendors are receiving those pricing increases right now, but we know of 2 very recent contracts that have been issued in the region, and we're basing a lot of our information on that, and also on that request for information process that we went through with 4 separate vendors in North America. And we would not be able to afford a truck based on our initial consideration of what the funding was back in 2021.
Wow, it's shocking. So I'm really pleased that on page 44, you mentioned that we get 15 years out of the trucks as a primary truck, and then 5 years as a secondary truck. So that's 20 years, but through maintenance, we're managing to keep them 22 years. So that's fabulous. Good use of equipment. Well, my question is, if the call out is a heart attack or an overdose, rather than use a fire truck, why not have some small vans that 2 or 3 first responders could be in with the defibrillators and then knocks alarm kits and all that? Like, why do we have to send a fire truck?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, it's a great question. We have trialed in the past, and in other municipalities locally, that trial does occur from time to time. And the primary reason why I'll say right now it's difficult to provide that type of a response is our firefighting staff are primarily responding to protect against fire, rescue, fire suppression, that type of emergency response. The medical response for us is a secondary role. And if we are unavailable to provide that type of response because we're busy at a fire, BC Ambulance is then obligated to shore up their resources and show up and perform that service. If I were to put my staff onto a smaller vehicle that is not a fire engine and send them out to a medical call, they certainly would deal with that medical call very well. But in the meantime, when a fire does occur, they may have to come back, get that fire truck, and then go back out, thereby increasing the response and arrival time to that fire, which is our primary responsibility.
No, listen, this is about fire trucks. We've got a long agenda, short questions, short answers.
Sure.
Well, I think that we need to make a motion to look at that because when over 80% of the calls are medical,
It's not part of this, what we have.
we
in
need the
front
fire
of us.
trucks, but we need to go to the next level. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Heed.
I'll be short, Mayor. Got your warning. Just to follow up on that, if you look at what Vancouver did, they did it during the crisis of COVID and the overdose deaths. You recall that they had the 2-person units in the smaller vehicles in a particular area only, just the city center. My question to you, Chief, is do we have an antiquated fleet? You say we're getting 22 years max out of a vehicle. Are we expecting that there will be more replacement requests coming in as we go forward, say in the next year or two?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yes. We have a replacement scheme, a schedule that we base on maintenance usage. We rotate our trucks through the city regularly to make sure we get the same average usage and mileage on them. So the plan that this is going to support would be a multi-year plan with a proper vendor to supply some trucks immediately and then a number of trucks going into the future based on our replacement requirements, our forecasted requirements.
So you'll be coming back to us with additional requests. So it's my understanding that the high-flow industrial pumper has not been delivered yet.
That's correct.
And are we requesting the same type of vehicle this time around?
It would be a different type of vehicle this time around.
What would it be similar to what you have now?
It wouldn't be similar to anything we have now. We're looking for replacement regular fire apparatus for our replacement program based on the maintenance and everything that we need. The high flow pump unit would be something that's a lot more portable than simply a fire truck that responds to VAFSE.
So most of your vehicles now are the shorter version that you're using for medical calls and for fire. So you're telling me we're going to have something different with this request?
That's correct. A lot lighter and a lot easier to deploy.
Thank you.
Counselor Al.
Yes, Your Worship, I would support the option 3 because I think, we need all the 4 or 5 engines, right? Option 1 is talking about only 2. So I think it's unfortunate that we were not able to buy those vehicles earlier for whatever reasons. But apart from supporting this, I hope that we can also go one step further, which is to have a projection of what will be the next level of needs that we need to address. Because this additional $600,000 contribution, I think is only arbitrary. Maybe we need more or less, we don't know. So I think, yes, I would support that we give this $600,000 reserve each year for now, but I would like to see that, what will be the next level of needs that we will address. And perhaps, in the future, we may want to increase to 700,000, I don't know. But I think we need to know the situation.
Just remember that number 2 is talking about, this is a submission to the budget process. So along with the materials, you can talk in support of that budget request. You can talk about the future needs.
Yes, Your Worship, we will be able to.
Okay. Counselor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the report. You gave us a couple options. Option 1 is status quo, but it essentially says then we would get 2 fire engines. And then option 2 was all 4 without increasing the funding. And then option 3 was get all 4 plus add the extra funding. What about if we did another option where we got 3 fire trucks and also increase the annual funding? Like that one wasn't put out there. I just wonder because it seems to me we regularly upgrade our fleet while we want our staff to have the best possible equipment to do the job properly. I think we have good equipment in general. It lasts a long time, and when it's finished, it gets sold to other municipalities that continue to use them for many more years. So they don't go directly to the garbage heap. They're not worn out per se. And there is redundancy in the system. So we do have, all of our trucks are working. Every shift has a backup truck, right? So I'm wondering, you know, if only by buying 3, do we just increase the average life an extra half year for our fleet? And is that something we could, is that a risk we could accept?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, I could take that back and look at what those risks are. Right now, I'm bringing you the minimum of what I forecast that we need right now. Those 4 trucks that I'm asking to replace right now also, from a business perspective or a value for money perspective, put us into the queue with a vendor that does guarantee a price and also guarantees a delivery date. If we buy less vehicles up front, we typically fall behind a lot of the other purchasers on the continent. And some of these people are buying 6, 8, 10, 15 trucks at a time. And so if we buy 1 or 2 trucks at a time, we end up at the back of the queue, and those timelines, as I understand through the RFI process, become exaggerated.
Okay, so should our replacement be, instead of getting 1 every year, we should get a couple at a time? Is that how the model needs to change to?
That's what this model is going to change to, based on this financial request here. There's an operational consideration behind this as well.
Okay, and then if our vehicles are shorter, does that mean we'll get a couple more parking spots in Steveston lanes? Sorry, you know what I'm doing.
Okay. Tony, did you want to add something?
Your worship, only one point to make, and then that had to do with the
Please hold the mic close.
The point that I wanted to make, your worship, was a point that Councillor Wolf alluded to. I just wanted to emphasize that the VAFFC funds are not earmarked for anything. Yes, there was an expression that they be used for emergency response in general. The use that's contemplated in this report is consistent with that. And I would add that all the responsibility in dealing with a spill or any catastrophe related to the operation of the jet fuel site is purely the responsibility of VAFFC. There are indemnities in place. There's insurance in place. There are other conditions as well. So I would not want to, I need to make that point clear.
All right, so the recommendation is, sorry. Well, the recommendation is as set out, but that would be, that goes to the budget process, so it's not a final. And then number 2 is that we increase the annual contribution by $600,000. Again, that goes through the budget process. So is that the motion you're making?
Yes.
Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. And now we'll move on to the next item. Steveston Village Lane parking. Thank you, Jim. Beata? So, do we keep going with what we've got, or do we change it in some way? Anything to add to your report? I think it's pretty evident.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, just to clarify, the recommendation is that there's 4 permits out there. We would keep with those. The rest would be just general parking for the foreseeable future. So that's moved and seconded. Discussion on that? Councillor Heed.
Yes, just to confirm, the 4 that are outstanding, are those ones that we're getting complaints about, or the 4 that have been issued?
Through the chair, those are 4 permits that have been issued, and 4 people have applied to the program to date.
But do we know if the Steveston business people in the community are complaining that those people have those 4 permits in those spaces?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we haven't heard specifically about those 4 permits. My understanding is that they don't like the program in general.
Yeah, they just don't want the pay parking program. Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Brody. So Councillor Hobbs and I met with the Merchants Association, and they found that the program just wasn't working. So I think that moving forward with, putting it aside for now and potentially creating better policies later on is the wise thing to do. They're having trouble keeping their staff because of the parking situation, and I'm really pleased that we could deal with this quickly because they really wanted this done before Christmas. So thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question to you. I will support the recommendation on the floor. When are we going to get the overall Stevenson parking study? Can that be moved up?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the plan is to bring that back near the end of 2025. Staff feels that it's important to look at the year-round use, and to miss out on the summer usage would be, I think, not comprehensive.
Okay, it's a pity because the issue is not going to go away. Have we worked with the Business Association and the Harbor Authority to talk about parking that is 400 meters away from some of the spots they're talking about?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, my understanding is that the Harbor Authority does offer monthly parking. However, the city can't compel the Harbor Authority to charge specific rates. And so I think it is best for the merchants to work directly with the Harbor Authority on that negotiation.
Will the Harbor Authority properties come into the parking study?
Through the
As
chair
an
to Councillor McNulty, yes, we will take a look at that. We will consider all available public parking, including paid parking and monthly options.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Councillor Hobbs.
Okay, thanks through the chair. Thanks for the report, and thanks for all the work on this, because it's something that people are seldomly totally happy with, the parking situation in Stevenson. So I think the recommendation's a good one at this point, because we did have a quite lengthy conversation with some stakeholders in Stevenson. One question is, the 4 permits that have been purchased, those 4 people are actually intent on keeping them and interested in having the spots identified and maintaining them? Because I also wondered about just giving people a refund.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, we have tried to reach out to those 4 people. We haven't reached all 4 of them. However, from those that we have talked to, they do want to continue it. However, it is, with the current recommendation, it's at their discretion. So they can cancel it if they wish, but if they wish to, the city would allow them to continue.
Okay, and just want to get into the Stevenson Lane conversation in a broader scope. I think one of the things that I do wonder about, and maybe I'll talk to you offline, but just all the signs on buildings that say no parking in the lanes, whether those are city signs or they're just professional looking signs, but I think that's something I can talk to you about later. Thank you.
All right, I'll call the question then on the motion, which is to be. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. A final matter is Councillor Heed's motion about referring this matter to staff to look at options for commercial truck parking. Councillor Heed, do you want to introduce this? Do you want to make the motion first of all?
Yes, the motion is laid out, everyone.
Go ahead.
Everyone has it. I don't think I have to read it unless you'd
No.
like me to.
Your move it and second. Go ahead.
Comments on this, and I'm not going to read out. You've got the background there. I just want to make a few points here. We've got a problem with trucks parking on ALR. We had this problem for quite some time. The enforcement that we have to deal with this is inconsistent throughout Richmond. And we've had this ongoing complaint from our commercial small businesses that they have nowhere to park their trucks. So they're parking it on ALR. They're parking it wherever they can. They've been looking for adequate parking for their vehicles. We just don't have it in Richmond. Staff did provide a memorandum to us on, I believe, a previous referral motion with respect to identifying areas in Richmond that are zoned for this type of commercial vehicle parking. And there was no pickup on, for example, some of those properties that some of these truckers could form a conglomerate and purchase. The people just didn't want to sell those properties to them. This is a problem throughout Metro Vancouver, Mayor. You're well aware of the problems there. Metro Vancouver's initiative to find adequate parking. Surrey's struggling. Every community is struggling. The motion I'm putting forward here identifies that we need to fast track this as much as we can, and there's some options we'd like staff to look at rather than just identifying possible locations in trying to move this initiative forward in a short period of time, and that is reporting back within 3 months at various options we could utilize in order for this to happen. The point I want to make here and staff that's listening to this is we want this for Richmond small business owners here, for their trucks. We don't want it, Mayor, and you guys at Metro can figure it out for the entire region, but I'm looking at something that's going to support our small business truckers that are stationed here in Richmond.
All right, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have to deal with the truck issue, but I do really like that this is for Richmond-based truck owners, not everybody in Surrey and everybody in Langley. I think that's extremely important. Richmond-made solution for a Richmond problem. And I do believe that there is land in Richmond that, like for instance, the go-kart track or Triangle Road, that have been used for storage and used for other purposes other than agricultural for years. And I don't see why we couldn't do some kind of lease arrangement with, obviously every truck driver will have to pay their share. It's not free. So I support it.
The ALR will have something to say about those two sites. Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, the ALC should have something to say about those sites, but they don't seem to be saying enough about the sites that are farmland and farmland with trucks all over them, and they're not taking the action that they said they were going to take. So I'm not sure what the difference is between those two properties, except that some are more viable for farming than others. But it's not just a problem in the Lower Mainland, it's a problem all over the province. I've got farmers in the interior that are telling me that a farm next door is doing the exact same thing, even though there's a lot of industrial land available. It's just that it's cheaper to buy agricultural land and then take advantage of it and use it for industrial purposes because they don't want to spend the money on industrial land. It's simply cost, and they're taking advantage of it. And I know that we already wrote a letter to the ALC to ask what they were doing about truck parking, or we wrote a letter to other levels of government to say that we're concerned about it. What are they going to do? So I think with this referral, if we could also find out, it's not an amendment, it's just information, if we could also do a little survey of where these trucks are coming from, because I don't think that all the truck operations are just local small business truckers. I think that people are coming in from all over and parking in some of these lots, and they're making money off of that. So I'd like to find out how many trucks are local and how many are just taking advantage of the farmland, and then report back on that in the context of this referral, and then identify land, like we say, and I can think of a couple other city-owned parcels that aren't. Maybe the one we own over near Ironwood that we were thinking about putting, anyway. I'm not sure. Anyways, and then highlighting that we're doing all of this and then writing another letter to the government saying this is what we're doing to try to protect our farmland in Richmond, and we're going to all these efforts to find some truck parking, even though it's a regional problem, and just highlight to them how hard we're working on this. So yeah, thank you, Councillor Heed, for bringing this motion forward.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to follow up on that and thank Councillor Heed for bringing it up. Two things. One, I think we need to involve the ALC again for the legitimate people that have trucks parked in their area for agricultural purposes. Not necessarily dump trucks and tandems, but their own trucks. And they get scammed for that because they got 2 or 3 of them. I'll take, I'm not going to pick on it, out on 8 Road. You've got a gentleman that farms the strawberries across the street, etc. What will the ALC accept? I think we need to know that, because the ALC is part of the problem, okay, in terms of some of the legitimate people. The other thing is, too, we need to, on this, I hope it will we be willing to, where there is raw industrial land, say on River Road, be prepared to rezone it such that they can park trucks in an industrial area. There are people out on anywhere between 6 and 9 Road that have lots, are willing to open up their property and say, you can park here, et cetera. We say, no, it's too close to the Fraser River, it's environmentally sensitive, et cetera, or ALC says that, et cetera, and it's a dead issue. There are, as Councilor Galander said, there are areas. And the other question will be, I'd like to see on this, will the city purchase property to do so? And have
That's beyond the scope of what's being asked.
Well, I think it's a question we're going to have because we're never going to solve this problem. The trucking industry is huge. Just go to number 6 Road and see all the containers in there alone. One business. It's a huge issue. Never mind the hauling of gravel, dirt, and all the other things. That's just container traffic itself. So, and it's business to the city of Richmond. They pay taxes. So anyhow, either we're going to address it or we're not. Thank you, Councillor Heed, for putting this forward. We need an answer. Thank you.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Someone move adjournment. I'm going to call to order the closed general purposes committee. May I have a motion on closure compliance in the agenda? All those in favor, opposed, carried. We'll wait for the room to clear.